You're listening to a podcast from The Word.
We were talking recently to Paul Gorman about his book about the music press.
Yeah.
And we were saying what a strange thing it is that we all remember things written in the music press from many, many years ago, even though we have great difficulty remembering anything we were taught at school or, all kinds of things that are far closer to us. But we can always reel off quotes from... I was thinking the other day about I think, Nick Kent, in a review of Joni Mitchell record in the 70s, said, I don't like Patti Smith, that bawling harridan with her jive muse.
That's right.
It was really stuck in my mind. Anyway, things like this really stick in your mind.
Charles Shaw Murray with The Clash. The kind of garage band that should be locked in the garage with the engine left on. Isn't that right?
Yeah, with the motor running, I think.
Motor running,
anyway.
yeah.
So, but anyway, and we were talking also to Paul about the little magazine Let It Rock that only sold about 4 copies. But, I was one of the people who bought them, and I've met everybody else who bought them. This is a magazine kind of, I wouldn't say flourish, but it hung on for about a couple of years or something in the mid-70s, and was very much a kind of forerunner of the likes of Mojo and Uncut, but years before its time, and in an era where there was no advertising to finance that kind of thing. Anyway, at the time, when Joni Mitchell's Court and Spark came out in 1974, that it was the kind of lead review in Let It Rock. And it was reviewed, unlike most of the records in Let It Rock, which were reviewed by people like Charlie Murray and Charlie Gillett or whatever, people you knew. This was reviewed by a guy you didn't know at all. It was a guy called Stephen Barnard. And the final line of the review was, and it's one of these lines that stuck with me, rock is dead, long live popular music. Okay, so that stuck in my head. So when it came to time to write my book about LPs, A Fabulous Creation, I wrote a chapter about 1974 and it was a great year, produced Randy Newman's Good Old Boys and Joni Mitchell's Colt and Spark. And I think the title of the chapter was Rock is Dead, Long Live Popular Music, and I actually quoted this thing with Stephen Barnard. And never thought any more about it. This week, so quite a few years later, I was doing an event at a bookshop in Hertfordshire, really nice bookshop in Letchworth called David's. I couldn't forget that. And I've done things there before, and they're very nice, and it's a really good place. And I was talking about my new book about Abbey Road, and usual thing, you sign a few copies afterwards, and the queue formed. You always said to me, yeah, watch out for the people at the back of the queue, because they're always.
I do. I noticed that. There are people, the last person in the queue does it for a reason, because they've got something to say to you. They want to have a conversation which they don't want to have interrupted. Yeah. But anyway, I can see probably where this is going. Go on, this is great.
So, this guy wasn't at the end of the queue, but anyway, he was halfway back in the queue, and he came, as he got there, he said, thank you very much. He said, you quoted me in one of your books. I said, really? He said, yes, I'm Stephen Barnard who wrote that.
That's fantastic.
And he said, I didn't know at all until he was reading the book, A Fabulous Creation. He got halfway.
Did you credit him when you said it? Yes, you did. Yeah.
But he was halfway through the book and reading it, and then suddenly went, crikey, I'm in this book.
That's fantastic.
And then came along. So I thought that was... I was very glad he did.
That's a lovely story.
It's nice, isn't it?
He would have been so thrilled. Did he carry on writing reviews, or was that just a kind of one-off?
I didn't actually ask him. He said he was very young at the time, and either Charlie Gillett was in charge of doling out the reviews for Let It Rock.
Yeah.
And that I think he said he was only 16, 17 at the time. And that Charlie said, go on, you do this. And you can imagine Charlie doing that.
Oh, he would have done, yeah.
And... because reviews editors, it made me think, reviews editors are always caught between wanting to use the old reliables because they're reliable. You know, they'll deliver on time.
Yeah.
But also just wanted to get new voices in there all the time, aren't they? You know?
Yeah.
And so
shake up the old guard.
Yeah, absolutely. And they will tend to try a 16-year-old or, you know, somebody with no kind of CV or anything like that. And so he must have done that in that spirit. And so he said, I only did it for a while. And but it, you know, in a way, he's one of those people who's famous via the music press, if only in a small way. Because Absolutely. I remember him. You know?
I know.
And you know, if you ever wrote a review in the NME or any of those titles, somebody somewhere will remember you. Because the person you wrote the review about...
They will have probably cut it out. It might still be on their fridge. Yes. It's quite possible.
Or their
mother... only mentioned the press they ever got.
Or their mothers will have...
Yeah.
Was it... You know, we were thinking about this when we were talking to Claire Grogan some while ago, beginning of lockdown, I think, when we did a kind of wording erratic with Claire Grogan. And I think her mother had died. I think that's correct, I think. And so she'd been involved in clearing out, you know, stuff from the old family home. And then she found a load of old clippings about her and alternate images and so forth.
But exactly the same thing happened with David Baddiel.
This is what I was going to say.
Baddiel's dad died. Did you see? I don't know if you follow him, but I saw it. Very, very good. And he suddenly said, I'm really touched. They never mentioned this at the time. And they had all these things about him and Newman, I think. Was it Newman and Baddiel and their early gigs? And, you know, he was just terribly moved by it. It was so sweet.
Because it is a fact. It doesn't matter who you are. You know, your biggest fan is your mum.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that, isn't it? You know, she's the person who never goes off you. So let that be a lesson to you all.
When I was the editor of Smash Hits, my mum used to occasionally wear the free promotional badges that we put on the front. And her favourite one was Simple Minds, which she thought just somehow applied to her. She used to go to shops hoping that someone would comment. And if they commented, she'd go, oh, yes, well, it's a free badge on the cover of the magazine that my son edits. It would be her way of starting a conversation. Very touching.
My mother used to go into the local newsagent, and she didn't buy them. She just used to look in whatever I was writing for to see if I was still there. And when I was, after I'd been editor of Smash Hits and then was subsequently editorial director, my mother looked on the masthead and saw I was no longer editor. And she rang me up and said, is everything all right?
Oh, that's great. No, you've been demoted somehow. You've been kicked upstairs to editorial director.
See, that's what, the truth is, that's what mothers always fear, actually, in any sphere, actually. I mean, what we've discussed this before. What the hell must it be like being the parent of a kind of top footballer or tennis player or whatever, and watching them either succeed or fail in the most public glare. I can't imagine.
Oh yeah, and see the press turn against them. And, it must be absolutely miserable. And knowing also that if they're an athlete, that it's it's only a relatively short space of time they've got to operate anyway.
Yeah.
Grim.
Yeah. That's why we never did it.
That's right. We could have done so easily.
Absolutely. I could have been a judge if it wasn't for the Latin.
The Word Podcast. Prime cuts of popular culture served fresh each week.
So another thing from my trip up north this weekend, took a very busy train from King's Cross on Friday afternoon, really packed, day before rail strike and so forth. And a figure came down the carriage, went down the other end, and then came back. And I think I was the only person who clocked this individual, who was wearing a very sophisticated pair of sunglasses that allowed you to see a certain amount of her face, but not the kind of.
Oh, this is good. Was she a musician? Is she a musician?
Well, certainly yes. Okay, all right. Okay.
Can I possibly guess?
I think I was the only person, certainly in my carriage. I had to draw it to my wife's attention. Who this was, and she then had a look when she came back and said, yes, you're absolutely right, it is. And this was a person who, Mark, let's say 10, 15 years ago, was one of the most famous people in the world, okay? coming down an intercity train going...
The Spice Girl?
Yes!
No!
Scary Spice.
No kidding.
Scary Spice. You're absolutely correct.
Incredible.
Which I thought was kind of incredible.
And that nobody recognised her.
That nobody recognised her apart from me.
Although somebody wearing sunglasses on a train early in the morning usually is indication...
Well, it wasn't particularly... It was sunny. It was a very bright, shiny day, so it was quite admissible, really, to wear sunglasses. There were kind of sunglasses that had a kind of dark area over the eyes, but the rest of it was you could see through. And it was, and she comes from Leeds, doesn't she? I think she does.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So there you are. Okay.
What a weekend! What a weekend of Stars Play. King Crimson. I was only going to mention King Crimson because actually, funny enough, I got an email from someone I haven't been in touch with for 2 or 3 years, actually. He said, I don't know what you'll be up to right now. You're probably sitting there listening to In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson. And you know, weirdly, I was quite spooked out.
God.
I thought, am I that predictable? No, I was, for the simple reason that I've just been sent a new documentary that's coming out called In the Court of the Crimson King by a guy called Toby Amies. And he said to me, I thought it was really interesting. It made me think, what an extraordinary group King Crimson are. There is no band like them on God's green earth. Don't you think? You know, they've been going for 53 years. They've never broken up. They've had a couple of hiatuses where Robert Fripp has said that the switch has been set to off. But the whole point of the group, totally unlike any other group, really, I think, that I could think of, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, which we can talk about in a moment, was that it's there to keep evolving. You know, it's to keep new members and keep producing new music and keep trying new stuff. So therefore, it must be one of the very rare examples of a group that people go to see where they're as interested, if not more interested, actually, in hearing the new music.
No, that's really true.
Than they are in the old music, which is amazing. Obviously, they do play 21st century schizoid man, and that's great. But I mean, I don't think that's the point of it at all. And I thought that was interesting. Robert Fripp's the only real constant in the group. There's an amazing story in it where MacDonald and Giles left, I think, really early, maybe in 1969. And he's so heartbroken, and MacDonald still regrets it. And he's interviewed, and he's almost in tears. He said, I really regret leaving. And I want to apologise to Robert that I broke your heart and just tell you I'm sorry. And I thought, this is incredible, the amount of emotion. Imagine that, regretting it still after how many, 53 years?
They left during an American tour, didn't they?
That's right, they did.
And it was the kind of breakthrough in the United States.
It was.
And they announced they were leaving.
Yeah.
You know, which was so early in the day, wasn't it?
Oh, they'd only been in the group less than a year.
I think it was just the experience of touring. They didn't like it.
They couldn't bear it. And they were going to go on tour in Japan and Europe after this, and they just couldn't stand it. And one of them, I think it's Mel Collins, who's still in the group, he was talking about how in the early days, he said it wasn't much fun. If you made a mistake, it was the end of the world. You could imagine, because there's a certain element of James Brown about Robert Fripp, you know, not quite finding people for bum notes, but not far off. And it's also interesting that Fripp himself is a really cold fish, actually. I mean, he's obviously quite a warm and humorous guy. You and I have talked about and seen those clips that he and his wife Toya do, you know, did during lockdown, you know, in their kitchens, dressed up in tutus and playing the guitar. They're fantastic. He's obviously a very funny guy. But I mean, it's quite a serious environment. And he's not at all warm to the fans. In fact, he's quite critical of the fans. And quite sneering and very controlling, and they're not allowed to film and they're not allowed to take photographs, which I actually have to say I approve of, actually.
Really?
But there we are. Yeah, but they don't mind that. They accept that he's just being Robert, you know. And I just thought, I did think it was, and they play at one point, they talked about how they play in, with 3 different members of the group playing in 3 different time signatures. And you think, this is so rarefied and so complicated. And I couldn't think if there were any other groups like, are there any other examples? Sun Ra is a possible thing, but they're not, it's not quite the same scale. Beefheart, to some extent, Beefheart was interested in new members and producing new music. Soft Machine, maybe. But otherwise, I couldn't think of another group who were purely a kind of art form like this band.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And the people are rushing to get there, and there's no one sitting there saying, oh, did they play so-and-so from the 1971 album? They just want to see whatever it is they want to do.
I suppose that's the virtue of never having really had hits.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not like you do your hits that everybody sings along with, and then everybody's slightly disappointed with whatever comes next, because you can't sing along with it.
Yeah.
Whereas there's a certain amount of, you know, King Crimson was just a very rigorous concept, wasn't it, from day one? And the only people who ever got on the King Crimson bus were the people who warmed to that idea of that rigour.
Completely, it's about discipline.
A bit more rigor. Fine, we're in the market for
that. It's about discipline to the extent that Robert Fripp practices 5 hours a day.
God,
can you imagine 5 hours a day? And he was showing, some of the really complicated.
Amazing.
It's to this day. Yeah,
that is longer. That is longer than Jacqueline Dupre used to practice.
I know. 5 hours. And he said, and the interviewer says, well, do people notice it? He said, well, they wouldn't notice any improvement in a week or two's time, but in a year's time, they might notice that I'm able to play things I might not have been able to play before. You think that's astonishing, really. That kind of discipline, that kind of rigor. It's just absolutely otherworldly. I thought it was extraordinary. I recommend it. I mean, I think it's out in cinemas and out to stream very soon. Yeah, it's by a guy called Toby Amies, and it's called In the Court of the Crimson King, which is very hard to say, isn't it? Easy for you to say, In the Court of the Crimson King. Precisely.
So I don't know which golfer it was who said it, but, talking about the practice, he said, the harder I practice, the luckier I get.
This is a junction in the word podcast. It separates that bit from this next bit.
So, welcome to our birthday guest this week. One of our birthday guests this week, Paul Cook. Paul, is it your birthday today?
No, it was a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, right. Sorry, we only just got around to fitting you in.
How was it? That's terrible, isn't it?
It's a festival of birthdays. It goes on. It's like the sovereign. You have a real one and you have an official one. And all.
Well, also, this is the third year. So, of course, in the first 2 years, I've said all the most exciting things that ever happened to me. And, of course, that's it, really. So this could be quite a short conversation.
Surely something has happened to you.
Come on. So have you got an agenda question or what have you got? Go on.
I was thinking, it occurred to me over the weekend that I was doing some clearing out in lieu of potentially moving. And I came across a whole stack of posters, memorabilia and various bits and pieces. And I was trying to think, we've got loads of frame stuff in the hallway. And I was thinking two things, one about memorabilia in general and one about souvenir gig posters. And I wondered if you knew when souvenir gig posters became a thing. Because now you go to a gig and you have these wonderful silk screen printed posters that have the dates on them, or even often I've got ones from just specific gigs. And it seems like a very labor-intensive thing to sell at a gig.
God, do I remember them being sold back in the day? No, I don't.
No, do you know,
really. Because they were made for fly posting, weren't they, really?
Yeah.
And your standard London gig poster, because if you're a promoter, you had to pay a fly poster to go around sticking these things on illegally.
Still do.
Yeah, do they still do that? Yeah.
I can remember on Q magazine, it must have been about 67, 68, 69 or something, giving away a free poster, which we got from John Savage. And John Savage, the music journalist, was already collecting these things. And I don't remember it being a thing then. Do you, Dave? We just thought, that'd be interesting. Let's just try this out and see if people put it on their wall as a kind of grown-up, hip version of kind of teenage, poster.
I think that stuff started to be marketed to the general audience.
Yeah. Probably
in the 80s. Because people like John would have had that stuff, but John was kind of ahead of the game with that kind of stuff. But Bill Graham, the promoter, his company Winterland started selling reproductions of old family dog posters from the Avalon Ballroom in San Francisco in 1967, featuring, I don't know, charlatans or, Jefferson Airplane or that kind of stuff.
Which had fantastic artwork, didn't
Absolutely.
The really psychedelic ones.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. That was the stuff. Because, in those days, that was their main form of publicizing anything. Was to get somebody's groovy friend to do a groovy illustration. And obviously there was no social media, there was no media that you could do that stuff through. So that's what they did.
Yeah, I think of Robert Crumb did all those illustrations for jazz artists alongside doing his underground comics.
But
I never whether you could buy them.
Which is how he got the job for the Janis Joplin, wasn't it, I think? That someone had seen those beautiful old jazz sleeves he'd done.
Mm. Yeah,
I went to a couple of years ago. I went to an afternoon with Robert Crumb at a cinema in the East End, and God, it was interesting. And there he was, surrounded by young art students who all revered him, but were aware of the fact that they ought to disapprove of him. So
yes, absolutely,
because Because all his works have got huge-breasted women.
Oh, yeah.
Enormous backsides.
Yes.
And,
Backsides and all sorts of sexual shenanigans going on. I know.
He was asked about these.
He's the original
things.
Uncle Disgusting.
Yeah, he was asked about these things, and I think they thought he was going to apologise. But he didn't. Yeah. He just sat there, this strange, emaciated figure wearing a pork pie hat, smoking all the way
There's
through.
There's a great documentary about
sorry,
him.
There's nothing I can do about that.
Exactly.
That's me.
Different times, hashtag.
That's right. His attitude was, it's not different times. His attitude was, that's me. And that's true. Because that is who he is, you know. He wouldn't be interesting if he didn't do that, you know.
Yes. There's a great documentary about him, I think came out on Artificial Eye. And that's where his mother is just covered in cats. You can smell the room. Yeah. Even though it's on video.
He's genuinely weird, Robert Crumb. He's not art school weird. He's genuinely weird.
Yeah, no, he has many philias, I believe.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Absolutely. So are you taking your posters to your new home?
Oh, we're not moving yet, but yeah, this was one of the things is like, do I keep this? I mean, some of these are unframed, so the framed ones are in the hallway. Right. But it's like, do we get this frame? Why are you getting these frames? What are you demonstrating? You showing, hey, look at me. I was at this gig 4 years before anybody heard about this band, that kind of thing, you know, because I was thinking also about things like set lists and that kind of memorabilia. And we've done
set lists are never very exciting, are they? Unless you were there, because they're just a list of names, aren't they? There's nothing illustrated.
And also, it's probably unintelligible. It looks like doctor's handwriting.
Well, they're often just in code, aren't they? They're just one word for each song.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, in fact, and I looked up some of the memorabilia, and there's a handwritten Beatles set list that went for $500,000.
$500,000?
$500,000.
I just cannot believe that. I just couldn't have done.
I mean, it was on the internet, so it must be real.
Exactly. That's just absolutely impossible.
Whereas you get a Nirvana set list at a snip for £5,625.
Yeah, that's more like it. I mean, $500,000.
In fact, I'll ask you.
You can get $500,000 for an acetate of the Beatles.
Absolutely. So, how much do you think for the Sgt. Pepper drum head?
Oh, as on the original,
on the cover.
Oh my goodness me, that would be a lot of money. I don't know. That's a lot of money.
Does it exist?
Sorry,
it's
apparently. Still... apparently.
How much? Go on.
$500,000.
That's more like it.
You see, that's quite
That's
reasonable.
A thing, though, isn't it?
It's a thing, and you can put it on your wall.
And you can point to the album cover and say, "Look, that's it there."
It's Jan Howard.
If you had that in a museum, exactly, that would get people beating a path to your door.
You would come and look at that.
You would. I mean, that's why museums buy this stuff.
If you found a notebook from the 1950s that was unused, you could probably write a ton of your own set lists from the Beatles, and if you got ink from the time. But
I don't wish to, cast any aspersions on the unimpeachable honesty of Don McLean, but the fact that he sold the lyrics of American Pie for $1 million, and then a week later discovered.
God, guess what I've just found in the ass? You think I should have cleared out before?
This was the second draft.
No, he had Vincent, his other big hit. He sold that as well for not quite so much.
And now you can sell the rights of your likeness, as Bruce Willis did, which is...
oh, right, yes. Well,
but you're still not owning Julie Andrews' guitar from The Sound of Music for £37,500.
See, that's quite...
That's cheap. That's absolutely unbelievable.
I think we could club together and get that for the, for the one of the backgrounds for the two of you.
That seems a very, very good deal to me.
Yeah.
But I
must be lots of them.
We had some people at the weekend in a pub, and they were like old punks. They put on a combination of Bay City Rollers and X-Ray Specs on the jukebox, and we got talking to them, and one of them had Dave Vanian's shoe.
Wait, just one?
Just one shoe. One. So he couldn't even wear the pair of shoes to a party and say,
No, just there it is. It was like a shiny, pointy dress shoe.
How do you get one shoe as well? I mean, does it...
I think it made its way from the stage into the audience at some point during a gig, as opposed to, I think, running up to Dave Vanian on the street, just grabbing a shoe and running off, which would obviously be theft.
Did he have it with him on this occasion?
He did not, unfortunately. I mean, I would like to think that he wore it round his neck like a necklace,
absolutely.
But yeah, that was Dave Vanian's shoe.
So you said you had another log to throw on the fire.
Well, no, the other thing is it's only because obviously you talk about sort of what happened in the last year, but I realised that one of the things that happened this year is accidentally started something on March the 20th, 2020, or March 2020, where I was furloughed, and so I did one of those very silly jokes where I put my head on some haute couture and said on Facebook, it's nice to be able to work at home so you can wear your own clothes. And, there was me in full ball gown. Right. And that kind of grew into something which has now had like 500 posts. But on the centenary posts, I do a cover version. It doesn't really work in this.
I've seen this. I think you sent the link, didn't you?
I sent the link to Alex. I hope you were able to still see.
Bowie's Fashion, is that right? ZZ
I've
Top,
done fashion.
Sharp-dressed man.
Yeah, I did do I Love a Man in Uniform, but then the Russians invaded Ukraine.
It's not funny anymore.
It really suddenly was just not funny, having recorded it and got all the people to sing backing vocals. But, I would encourage people to have a look if they want to if
we shall post the link.
We'll post the link.
Very good.
If they want to scare their kids, to grow up to be more sensible adults, then it's probably worth a look.
That's the way to do it. Well, look, Paul, thanks very much for joining us, and happy birthday as of 2 weeks ago.
Thank you very much.
See you in just under a year's time, if not before. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yes.
Cheers.
The Word Podcast. Fix yourself a drink, and it's like being in the pub.
It's it's a birthday special, and we're joined by Steve Cadman. Steve, it's not but I think it was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? But it's your 30th wedding anniversary?
It is, and also my wife's birthday, yes.
Very good.
Fantastic, congratulations.
So we'll celebrate those.
Yeah. And you've got various things to offer us.
You got a Stackwaddy game?
I have, yes.
Go on.
Okay, so the following are all ridiculous song titles by the band Budgie.
Lord.
Except for one, which I've made up. Okay.
Go on.
Okay, so if I was Britannia, I'd waive the rules.
Right.
Hot as a docker's armpit. You're the biggest thing since powdered milk. Crash course in brain surgery. Virgin on the ridiculous. In the grip of a tire fitter's hand. And Napoleon Boner parts 1 and 2.
Oh, that's good.
Well,
powdered milk's real, isn't it? That's
if I were Britannia, I'd waive the rules. I think is a title of one of their albums, isn't it?
It is, yes. And
yeah. Virgin on the ridiculous is also of the time. Powdered milk, those are real. I'm absolutely sure.
Right.
What was the Napoleon Bonaparte one again?
Napoleon Bonaparte 1 and 2.
That's not made up. That got to be real.
No, that is real, yeah.
So what does that leave us with?
In the grip of a tire fitter's hand, crash course in brain surgery, and hot as a docker's armpit, and you're the biggest thing since powdered milk.
I'm sure powdered milk is real. Hot as a docker's armpit sounds real too. They're of that time, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Is this the great Burke Shelley we're talking about, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah. You may have to tell us. Go on.
We give in.
We give in.
Virgin on the ridiculous is
right.
Oh, right,
that's actually a caravan song.
Oh, right.
Oh, very good.
Easily confused. Very good. Yeah. Very good. So, what have you agenda item have you got for us?
Well,
this week?
Agenda item I had was I wanted to know what the biggest disappointment you've had in
people always want you to
always. It's not who's the most exciting person you've ever met.
No. Well, can I give you an example? We used to live in New Zealand. My wife was general manager of the Children's Hospital there. Now, when Keith Richards fell out of the tree and needed brain surgery, they flew him to Auckland, and my wife's pediatric brain surgeon was the guy called Andrew Law, who did the operation on Keith. And we were fairly friendly with Andrew, and obviously Dana, as part of Dana's job, was looking after Andrew, making sure he was happy, because obviously a very stressful job, working on children's stuff. Anyway, one day he rang up and said, "Would you and Steve like to go for lunch with Keith Richards? We're taking him up to the Bay of Islands in New Zealand."
Oh, I've been there. It's a lovely place.
Yeah. And this was on the Sunday lunchtime. Would you like to come up? There'd just be 5 of us. And I was like, so this was on the Friday. So for a whole day, I was walking around pacing, thinking, what am I going to talk to him about? You know, this is the guy. I poured over his album, the Rolling Stones albums, or all the songs I know intimately, and I'm finally going to meet him face to face, sort of thing. Anyway, at the last minute, it was we got a call saying, "Oh, he's decided he doesn't want to go." So
there's a surprise.
Yeah.
So you spent weeks researching. Probably had a list of conversational topics in your back pocket.
I had 36 hours. Yeah, think about it really, and it's one of those things that would have been amazing, but didn't happen. Another one, just quickly, is that we were in New Zealand. They have New Zealand Music Month, which is every May, and at the time I was working for a retail chain in New Zealand. And we were doing a series of concerts at a bar called The Whiskey. Now, this bar basically holds about 40 to 50 people. And the owner decided he was going to have a gig every night during May with New Zealand bands on. Or anybody could get on, basically. So we were discussing this with Sony. And and Bob Dylan happened to be in town. And we said to him, I don't suppose you could ask Bob if he'd like to do it. And so they did. And he said, yes, he would like to do it, as long as nobody knew it was going to be him. Right? So he couldn't announce it.
No, cool.
And
that's astonishing, though.
Yeah.
I'm amazed.
He was playing the Enormo Dome and also a smaller theatre, which I went to.
Why do I think this is heading for catastrophe too? Yeah. I don't know, but just it's
so we had a week before it was supposed to be, it was on a Wednesday night that he was going to come and play it, and we kept ringing Sony, are you sure this is going to happen? We talked to the manager. Yeah. His management said it'd be quite a good thing to do. Of course, at the last minute, they had to get security in to make sure that it was going to be kosher to get in and out of this ball place. Of course, it wasn't, because there was only one door that went in and one door that went out. And if it all sort of went a bit pear-shaped, his security were a bit worried about old Bob being able to get out. So that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about. For that week. I was going to see Bob Dylan in front of 60 people.
I mean, if it's any comfort, I think it must be the case that on any given day, 10 people are expecting to meet famous people.
Yeah.
And 9 of them are disappointed.
Yeah.
Because that's how it works with those kind of people.
I mean, I did.
They have more things lined up for them than they will do. It's just a fact. And sometimes you have to give Bob loads of options, and then Bob can choose it. Or no, I'm going to lie in bed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, which is Keith's option. I did later meet him when they played a couple of years afterwards.
Keith.
Yeah. And it was very nice.
There's the beginnings of a book there. I almost had lunch.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, if it's any consolation, also Dave did interview Bob Dylan once, and at one point he got up and said to his PR, he said, "It's going okay, but this guy just keeps asking me all these questions." Which I thought was lovely.
At the beginning of lockdown, and it was Friday, March 13th, I think, I was supposed to have breakfast with the actor Colin Firth at the Connaught Hotel. Yes. Very grand hotel, very grand actor. Yeah. My wife was thrilled to bits that I was going to have breakfast with Colin Firth. And frankly, I was a bit thrilled. And of course, pandemic, COVID.
Yeah.
We ended up doing a Zoom call, you know what I mean? And it's just...
It's not the same, is it?
It's not really the same. You can't.
It would have been Kedgeree, there would have been Kippers.
That's right.
I know.
Oh, well, bear up in the face of your disappointment, Steve. And, enjoy the rest of your wife's day. And your wedding anniversary.
Well, The Word Podcast, 2 cocoa tins and a piece of string.
So, any other business? We're joined by Alex Gold. I read a correspondence. We were talking last week about band names and how they come about. Neil Davis got in touch. He liked this, and he talked about when he was 17 years old in the mid-80s, on a school trip to London, staying in a hotel near Knightsbridge with some mates who had a band and wanted a name. And who should be in the hotel bar but Pete Wiley, who recently had a hit with Come Back. Keith, as he says, Pete clearly knows a thing or two about band names. Having
he had about 18 different names for his own band, didn't he?
So there you go. So go on, Mark, you probably know them.
Well, there was Shambiko Say Wah.
There was Wah
Heat. The Mighty Wah.
The Mongrel Wah, is that right?
Might have been, yeah.
All sorts. Anyway, they got talking to him, and Pete Wiley said, basically, if you buy me drinks, I can help you, invent a band name. And so, those were the days when rock stars gave boys under drinking age, said, I'll buy you a drink. Whatever. and anyway, what they came up with was Norfolk and Good. Norfolk and Good. It didn't really take,
No.
But,
was that really worth a pint of double diamond? I don't know.
A pint of double diamond. Oh, there's nostalgia. Not. So, have you got pen and paper?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Are we being subjected to some kind of quiz?
Subjected to a quiz, which
go on.
Doing the rounds on the internet in the last week or so. You've got to give yourself 1 point for everything you haven't done. Okay.
Oh, okay. I've seen this. It's really good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I know my answer to this. Yeah, go on.
Okay.
Go on, fire away.
So, skipped school, number 1. Have you done it or haven't you done it? Give yourself a point if you haven't done it.
If you haven't done it, okay.
If you haven't done it, yes. Broken a bone. Give yourself a point if you haven't done it. Everybody listening could do this as well.
Yep.
Fired a gun. Give yourself a point if you haven't done it. Done drugs. Give yourself a point if you haven't done it. Been in a limo. Got a tattoo. Ridden a horse. Sung karaoke. Alex is not moving at all. Got a ticket. Let me see both your hands, Alex, above the paper.
Does that mean a speeding ticket or something? What does that mean?
Yeah, a ticket.
Yeah, speeding ticket, yeah.
Been arrested. You have been arrested, Alex. Wow.
No, I haven't actually.
Yeah.
No.
Have you been zip lining, which is like, what's it, isn't it? What do you call it? Bungee jumping.
Yeah.
Been on TV, yes. Been on a cruise. Got a...
Can I go to the minuses in?
got a piercing, smoked, met a celebrity, been skydiving, had a one-night stand, skinny dipped, been drunk. All right, what's your score, Alex Gold?
Oh, man.
Your score's going to be naught, isn't it, Alex?
You go 4.
4?
4 that you haven't done. What are the 4?
Go on, tell us which the 4 are.
What are the 4 that you haven't done?
Oh, God, I haven't been arrested.
All right, okay.
I haven't got a piercing.
All right, have you gone zip lining?
I haven't been skydiving.
It wasn't skydiving.
I haven't gone skydiving.
Right.
And I forgot what the other one was, but I haven't done it.
Zip lining, was it?
Sure.
Tattoo? You got a tattoo?
No, I've been zip lining.
You got a tattoo, I know.
You've got a tattoo.
All right, okay. Wow. Okay, so Mark Ellen, what about you?
My score is 6. I have never skipped school.
You've what?
No, never. Never skipped school. Have I? No. What do you mean? As in, if you pretend to be ill when you're 6?
Bunk off.
I must have done. Sorry, ignore that. 5. Yeah. I haven't got a tattoo. Although I did go to a tattoo parlour to get tattooed in the moment with this mate of mine, and it was closed. So there you are.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I've never been arrested. I've never been ziplining. I haven't got a piercing, and I haven't been skydiving. So otherwise, the rest I'm afraid I've done.
Have you sung karaoke?
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, and EMAP, our old publishers, one of their parties. How about you? What's your score, Dave?
What's your karaoke go to?
My mic's becoming okay.
I haven't got a tattoo. I haven't sung karaoke because I absolutely refuse.
Oh, right.
I've been prepared to risk embarrassment in a public place rather than sing karaoke.
Okay.
I have not been arrested. I've not been on a cruise. I haven't got a piercing. And I haven't been skydiving or gone zip lining. Okay.
See, I've been on a cruise, but I've been on a cruise not as a cruise ship kind of passenger, but as part of the staff, giving a lecture, giving a talk. Which is perfectly legitimate, I think. But to have gone on a cruise otherwise, slightly iffy. But it's good though, isn't it? I've seen quite a few people who've done that.
So talking to cruises, how's your cruise going, Alex?
It's going on. We've got 2 more weeks in Alaska, and then I've been extended a little bit, so I get to do the crossing. So down the west coast. So San Fran, LA, then the Mexican Riviera, as they call it, then through the Panama Canal. I think a quick cheeky stop at Guatemala, because you've got to, haven't you, really? And then Cartagena in Colombia, and then up to Miami, and then I fly home. So, I'm quite happy about that. I bought some ankle socks today. That's the big news.
In case it gets chilly.
I'm getting all my... I'm getting all my summer things, because I've only packed for the cold, because I thought I was just going to be in the cold weather, but no. Yeah. So next week it's shorts, and a week after it's sunnies. You know, I'm giving myself something to look forward to every week. You see, and it's small purchases for sunshine, but it's going well. It's going. Shows are going good.
So what have we got coming up in the world of Word in Your Ear?
We just put out the Mark Cooper, haven't we? We've got Danny Baker we're doing next week, I think.
Yes.
Which is very good. We're doing Jackie Abbott, who's from the beautiful South, etc. soon. So, various things. And we're doing a footballer, Dave. We won't announce who just yet, but we are doing a footballer, which is very exciting.
A former footballer.
A former footballer. Which will be really good.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Lots going on.
So we got lots lined up, and so don't forget to subscribe and like in all the appropriate places. And if you haven't already done so, go to patreon.com/wordinyour-ear and see how you could become an even more valued member of our community.
This podcast was brought to you by The Word.